first words that they did say to me were, well, we're sorry to inform you, but you're infertile and you can't have your own children. I walked out of the GP surgery with a green slip with my prescription and a leaflet with 2 white, old, wrinkled, grey-haired ladies on the front saying, what is menopause? I can't see myself in that. We need to learn way more about women's health, because everyone who goes through something like this feels alone at some point.
Hi guys, welcome back to Tea at 4. I'm Christy.
And I'm Lauren, and this is the podcast where we talk all things that should have stayed in the group chats.
Yes.
Speaking of the group chat, this week I was telling Christy about an incredible women's health summit that I went to, hosted by The Lowdown.
Yes.
And at this summit, there was a talk on menopause. And I just want to preface this by saying, I don't think I've ever had a conversation with anyone, whether that be in school, not even my mum, about menopause. And amongst this panel was a girl, a 23-year-old girl called Sheree. And firstly, this was amongst a couple of older women, which I was thinking, what's the story here? And Sheree was basically talking about how she has gone through menopause at the age of 15, early menopause. And I thought this was an incredible story to share. And luckily, we've got her on the podcast today.
Yay!
So, woohoo! Firstly, Sheree, thank you so much for coming on. Would you mind introducing yourself up? Introducing yourself up for our audience.
So I'm Sheree. I am 23 now. I was diagnosed with something called premature ovarian insufficiency at the age of 15, which basically means that your ovaries are declining and dying, which sounds very depressing. But yeah, that is basically what it is before the age of 40. I educate women, men, young people in schools, universities, workplaces about my story and using it to facilitate conversation and basically help people know what it is and know what menopause is.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So can I ask the initial question? How did you know you had POI?
So we have to wind all the way back to early teens.
Yeah.
So I was about 12, 13 when my peers started to have their periods and buying their first bras and talking about puberty and all of those really fun things when you're young. And I never felt like I could really get involved in those conversations because I didn't experience anything like that. But I thought that I'm still quite young. I'm not going to flag this up yet. And when I was about 14, I went to my mum and I was like, Mum, I haven't had my period yet. Bit worried because everyone else literally felt like they'd all had their periods. And I was like, right, something's really wrong here. And I was a really poorly child, or that I'd describe myself as. So I'd have I'd get really sweaty randomly and have night sweats that I know now, but I just felt like I was always having the colds and always a bit under the weather. I had really bad back pain and joint pain, and I went to the doctors about all of this. No one ever really drew the dots. And then finally at 15 I went to the doctors and I was like, I'm not having my periods. All of these things are happening. Is there anything that could be wrong with me? And they did. Well, they sent me away first and said, you're too young. Your periods will come. You'll be fine. Very dismissed. And I was like, oh, maybe I'm making something up here. Definitely felt like I was kind of gaslit a lot. But thank God I've got an absolute powerhouse of a mum, because she was like, we're going back. We're not leaving until we find some answers. And that's basically how I found out. I just was very persistent with the GP, simple blood tests and an ultrasound scan to confirm. And yeah, they told me like a few months after that.
Wow. Like, I just want to know, like, what was, when you was diagnosed, what was the thought process? Because for me, when I hear something, I'm quick to, like, you know, we run onto the internet and you Google. Yeah. So I can just imagine 15-year-old you hearing that. What are you thinking? Because of course you've never heard of what it is before. So
no.
Could you just like describe, if you don't mind, that moment for you?
Honestly, I was completely confused.
Yeah.
Like, I was just completely and utterly like, what the hell are you even talking about? Nothing was really explained to me. Not very well anyway. And I basically kind of went a bit, like, I couldn't hear anything that they were saying. Yeah. Because the first words that they did say to me were, "So Sheree, you've come in today to see what's going on with your body and with your health." And I was like, yeah. And they said, "Well, we're sorry to inform you, but you're infertile and you can't have your own children."
That was the initial.
That was the like first thing that came out of their mouth.
15.
Yeah. So I was like, whoa. What the hell? I was like, this is a bit scary.
Yeah.
And then they carried on and basically said, "You've got something called premature ovarian failure," as it was called at the time. And after that, I just completely went like, failure, infertility, like, am I a woman? What is going on? And yeah, it was really surreal.
Like, mentally going on from that day, were you like, did you have to do your own research in terms of how to be treated for this? Because, like, personally, when I think of POI and things like menopause, it's like for older people. Like, is the treatment for that completely different when you're younger, or?
The treatment for menopause in general is completely different for everyone.
Okay.
Everyone has different body types. Everyone absorbs different HRTs, hormone replacement therapy, differently. So for me, as a younger woman as well, that is going to be a factor, because when you are younger, you do have more estrogen. So I will need more estrogen, more progesterone and testosterone, which a lot of people think that it's a male hormone, but I have testosterone. We all have testosterone. I just have to replace mine. But from the day that I was diagnosed, I was prescribed estrogen and the hormones, but also antidepressants.
Wow.
And I never explained that I had like bad mental health. It was just assumed that I would need them.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And did you have did you have your mum there? Like,
yeah. So my mum was there, and she was pretty much the information sponge at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't really understand what was going
at 15,
on.
I could barely take in what my GCSEs were trying to get me to learn, let alone something happening like that in a doctor's.
I mean, a vivid memory for me is like a few weeks after my diagnosis. And I was sat in a science class, because bear in mind I was 15, just about to do my GCSEs, and they were like, "Oh, well, you want to get all the 1 markers, the multiple choice, they're really easy, let's just bash out a few of these."
Yeah.
And they said, like, everyone write down what a species is. And everyone's like talking amongst themselves. And then the answer was an organism that can reproduce. And I was sat in that classroom, not telling anyone what I'm going through.
Yeah.
Keeping it such a secret, because I was so ashamed and so embarrassed. And someone says that, who I look up to as a teacher. And then I'm like, what the hell, am I some sort of alien or something? Like, I'm not even a woman. I feel like I'm not a woman. I'm not a human. And yeah, it was a really crazy time. Trust me.
So at that moment when you just found out that you had it, were you internalizing a lot? Were you keeping it private, or was it stuff you were sharing with your friends?
Yeah, I kept a lot of it a secret. I confided in one of my friends, but after a few years, until COVID, actually, because I threw myself into my education. I like didn't want to think about it, completely was in denial. And so I just distracted myself with work and with going out with friends and doing all the usual stuff, because it was also marketed to me as something that I don't have to worry about right now, because you're not thinking about children now, so you don't need to worry.
God.
So I just put it to the back of my mind, not really realising that it literally impacts your whole body, mind, skin, hair. Everything is impacted by hormones. It's literally like the battery to a woman. With hormones, with the woman's body, with the decline of hormones through menopause, the long-term effects of not having enough estrogen or progesterone or all of these things can have really severe effects on a woman's body, like dementia, heart disease, osteoporosis, type 2 diabetes, certain types of like eczema and things like that. Like you can be impacted in a lot of different ways if you don't have enough hormones. And I was never told any of this. I was just kind of fobbed off and had to do my own research. I had to go out there and really think about how is this impacting my body. So in COVID, I couldn't distract myself anymore with school. Like it was all, I was at uni at the time, and it was all like cancelled, and I couldn't throw myself into my studies. I couldn't see my friends. We were all in the same boat, but I was using it as a distraction, and then there was no distraction all of a sudden. So I kind of went through the 7 stages of grief in lockdown, like the anger and the sadness and the like worry, and then the, you know, all of the different steps, like the bargaining, being like, well, you know, there's loads of different things out there, like there's science is like so amazing. And then finally the acceptance, and I thought, I can't be the only one who's going through this. Like, there must be some other women going through what I'm going through right now. So I went on Instagram, like everyone around our age does, Instagram and TikTok and all of the above. And I couldn't see anyone posting about it. And I was like, I'm going to be that person who does, and I'm just going to put it on and then leave it and see what happens. So I just posted it, threw my phone across the room, and I was like, finally the secret is out. I don't have to be ashamed anymore. Let's just be confident with it and see if I can help anyone. And the response was just phenomenal.
Wow.
Really?
Like, everyone was so supportive. Even like boys who were in my classroom at school were like messaging me being like,
That's amazing.
that's amazing. Like, you'd never have known. So interesting. Wish I could learn more about it.
Wow.
Like, being genuinely serious. And I was like, there's something there. Like, we need to learn way more about women's health. There needs to be more research, more education, more awareness, because everyone who goes through something like this feels alone at some point, and you're not alone. And so that's why I do what I do, because, you know, I want to help people.
That's absolutely amazing. I was gonna ask, at the time that you were diagnosed, you had, your mother was there, of course. How was it for her? Because I'm guessing she at the age that she was at, she wasn't at the, how I'm trying to articulate this.
She wasn't at the average menopausal age.
That's it. She wasn't at the average menopausal age. So how was your relationship between you and your mother? Because obviously now she's got to explain something that she hasn't even gone through herself to you. So how was that mother and daughter bond during those times for you?
Me and my mum have always been super, super close. And it just brought us closer, learning about each other and learning about different things together. I mean, she was my only like person who I could really talk to, because I didn't tell anyone else. I didn't tell my siblings, didn't tell anyone, because I was so, as the older sibling, I was like, I should be the role model. And I didn't think at the time that an infertile woman is a role model. But yeah, so we like bonded over it, to be honest. And then when it was time for her to go through her like HRT journey, she knew exactly what to say to the doctors, knew exactly how to approach certain situations, knew exactly what she was heading herself in for with HRT. So it kind of prepared my mum for menopause, which is so weird because obviously your daughter's not meant to go through menopause before you. But it kind of prepared her for what was coming, and I think all women should just be prepared.
That's true.
100%.
Yeah.
You spoke about the kind of initial symptoms about not, I know you said about the stuff in your childhood, but not starting your period until 15. If I actually think back, I think I was late on coming on my period, and I wouldn't have associated it with something like early menopause or POI. Like, was there anything else around that time that was like symptom wise a bit of a flag? Because one, the awareness isn't there at the moment, the education isn't there, the conversation isn't there, but ultimately, like, what are we supposed to be looking out for?
Periods is the number one indicator, to be honest. Irregular periods, really heavy periods, and then like absent periods. Right. So it sounds like, oh my God, that's pretty much every single person.
Yeah.
But you should be on like kind of on top of your own health, because no one else is going to. Quite frankly, we live in a society where women's health just isn't seen as a thing. Like with endometriosis, PCOS, there's no studies with hardly any of this stuff. And so you kind of have to know your own body, and I just knew something wasn't right. I was like really poorly as a kid, and I just knew that like the certain things weren't meant to be, like I just didn't feel right. And I mean, in hindsight now, looking back, there were so many symptoms. I had like vaginal atrophy, which is the drying and the thinning of the like vagina, but it stopped me from like sitting down for long periods of time. So like you know, when you was at school and you had the 3-hour English exams, I would be so uncomfortable in those exams. I couldn't wear like tight jeans at some points. And this is a massively common symptom. And I didn't even go to the doctors about that until I was in my 20s, because I thought it was not even connected. I mean, I'm all fine now, thankfully. Like, you can get vaginal estrogens and you can get it all sorted. But yeah, so there was like that, and then I had hot flushes. I was always the person who, in the friendship group, who would go out without a jacket because I knew that I'd get hot. Like at sleepovers and stuff, like I'd want to stay in my own space because I knew that I'd get hot at night. Certain things like that. I mean, I'd forget where my classrooms were, and I'd had the same classrooms the whole year round, and I'd put my hand up in class and forget why it's even up there. There's so many things like that: brain fog, hot flushes, vaginal atrophy, joint pain, insomnia, hypersleeping. Like, there was just so much, but it can also be thought as puberty, like mood swings, like, you know, hot flushes. You know, sweaty teenager when you see one. So it's really hard to detect. But you just have to kind of advocate for yourself and see if, you know, you can get any help.
And when you talk about your diagnosis, I guess you said the first thing that they brought up was about the fertility. How did you navigate that whole concept at 15? And like, was there treatment? Did they suggest any possible routes you can go down for the future? Or
I mean, with the fertility side of things, that was like the really hard part for me. I've always been quite a maternal person, like with my younger siblings, and like I've always thought of myself in that way. I mean, all women are kind of told in society that they should be mothers one day anyway. So hearing that, especially before you actually have the knowledge to really think if that's what you want, or like if you don't even really think about it properly when you're a teenager.
Yeah, no, you don't.
No.
And then being told that you can't, it's like it's like unreal. You can't imagine like the feeling. And it took a lot of therapy and a lot of talking to my mum and a lot of researching different things, and honestly researching childless women, like women who have their whole lives and choose not to have children. Like, I didn't realise that was even an option. There's society has got a lot to answer for when it comes to motherhood and womanhood and the ideas around gender, tying it to being a mother, and massive complex. I had a massive complex with my womanhood, and yeah, it was really painful. It was hard. I mean, at the age of, I think I was 17. I might have been 16, but I was taken into an IVF specialist appointment, and obviously I wasn't going in there to have IVF because I was 16, 17.
Yeah.
But even that knowledge, you don't need to know about that when you're 16, 17. I was putting money away in a savings account from the age of 16. Like, I was propelled into adulthood before I even could even think about it properly.
Yeah.
It was really hard.
God, and it's like, and it's all the conversations, like you say, that are surrounding motherhood and being a mum and the future, and it's so heavy. And I guess you didn't share a lot of the stuff with the people around you. Like, how do you set those boundaries with people when not everyone's going to understand the full story, and we're not at that point where we're educated yet? So how did you protect your own mental health, physical health, everything around that time?
I mean, I kind of removed myself from certain situations. I did become a little bit withdrawn when it came to like girls' chats and like talking about baby names and things like that. And like sex education at school, like I went to a Christian school.
And definitely they won't be talking about that. I went to one, so yeah.
It was like very like pregnancy based, like you will get pregnant, so you know, abstinence and all of this stuff. But it was like very much seen as like you are going to get pregnant one day. Like, it wasn't taught that you might not be able to have children or that you can choose otherwise, that you don't need to have children at all. So it was really hard to build those boundaries, especially when you had to be in the classrooms, when you had to be in the, and you didn't want to look weird. You didn't want to be the odd one out leaving the classroom, or, you know, I just kind of had to deal with it. But yeah, there'll be loads of times throughout my life where I'll have that weird feeling of happiness for other people but kind of sadness for me, and like when my friends have babies, maybe I'll feel some type of way about that, but you just have to take every day as it comes. And I guess like it's all about learning how you cope as an individual and how much you can handle. And
definitely and just even being in front of us now and having this conversation and being on a panel talking about menopause amongst older women as well, is that voice that is so crucial.
Exactly.
Because I think you made a really good point about how when you were diagnosed and you went to the doctors and you're looking at these leaflets and they're of older ladies, and like you've talked about obviously having a voice on social media but not having that representation there.
I mean, it lacks in a lot of the minorities that are diagnosed with this sort of stuff. Like, I walked out of the GP surgery with a green slip with my prescription and a leaflet with 2 white, old, wrinkled, grey-haired ladies on the front saying, "What is menopause?" And I can't see myself in that. Black women can't see themselves in that. disabled women can't see themselves in that.
Yeah.
Trans people can't see themselves in
Yeah.
that. And trans people go through menopause. Trans men go through menopause.
Yeah.
It's just younger women, you know, it's so, there's no representation for women going through menopause through all walks of life. And I have the privilege that I'm well educated and I'm white and I can stand on a platform and speak. But you still feel underrepresented, even though you do carry some privilege because of my age. And a lot of people are like, well, you know, you don't really know what it's like. Like, I'm old, I'm losing my job, I'm divorcing my husband. I'm like, well, I didn't even have a chance to get a relationship. I didn't have a chance to get on the property ladder before all of this crap has hit me in the face. I'm starting from afresh and, you know, going into the world already facing those barriers.
100%.
So sorry, that was a bit of passion.
No, you say it, because I definitely do understand that where you're coming from, because it's like it's you by yourself, so you're trying to like show the world like I've got a voice too, listen to me. You can even learn something from me, because you know what I mean, it's your own perspective. With the work that you do on social media and everything that you shared, have you managed to connect with people your age?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've got so many online mates now. It's really good. And the Daisy Network is a charity that is for POI sufferers. Don't like the word sufferer, but anyway, warriors.
There you go.
Love it.
But yeah, so there's a charity out there that is really good. And there's like the Make Menopause Matter campaign, which is also really good for us. Getting the education into schools on school curriculum, which is so important. And yeah, I've found a lot of women. I mean, it's 1 in 10,000 women under 20 who go through menopause early. Wow. It doesn't sound like
it does in a way. Like that 10,000 women in the grand scheme of things. Like, I mean, I don't know 10,000 people. Absolutely not. But it's quite like,
it's a lot more people than you think.
Yeah.
I mean, that's also people who are in the research. Like, there's people who take the pill for their whole teenage life and it's got hormones in it, so it masks all the symptoms. And then when they stop taking the pill, they can't have babies because they've gone through the menopause, but it's just masked the hot flushes, masked the insomnia, masked all of these things. And then they're going through the menopause, but they don't really know. Jeez. So these are women who, and also women who are scared to go to the doctors. People don't go until they're like 30 and really know what they're doing with their life. And like, so I think the number's way higher, way higher.
God. So with just asking on a very basic level, HRT is the hormone replacement therapy. Like, when you're taking that at 15, is it as straightforward as them knowing exactly the things to put in you to sort things out? Like, what was that situation like?
Definitely felt like a bit of a lab rat.
Yeah.
It was trial and error after trial and error.
Wow.
Like, there's tablets and patches and there's, you know, injections, but I haven't tried that. There's like oral tablets, vaginal tablets, there's gels, like sprays, there's so many, and I've done it all apart from the injections. And I finally found, after 8 years, bear in mind, finally found a HRT regime that works for me.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Fucking hell. 8 years is a
long time.
Wow.
So there's been like massive ups and massive downs with the HRT journey. I mean, I've been hospitalised because of the HRT that I've been given before. Like, too high a dose can also be really harmful.
What are the side effects of that?
I mean, again, it's so hard to say because there's just not enough research. There's no research on patches for women under 20. So I'm literally just taking this medication and just not sure.
That's crazy.
So it's being treated obviously like a menopausal woman at an average age. So fingers crossed I'm fine. But there is just no research out there. I know that there's some like up and coming research coming out soon.
Okay.
But currently, as we stand, we don't really know what's what's going to be helpful, what's not helpful. We do know, however, that transdermal patches, so that means through the skin, hormones through the skin, are a lot better for you in like blood clot wise. They like don't create blood clots or anything like that. I mean, there's so many myths around HRT, like the breast cancer myth, and the blood clots. And women take the pill for 40 years, 30 years, 20 years, and don't bat an eyelid because they don't want to get pregnant. But it's kind of the same stuff, but in patch form. It's hormones. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, I don't want to take it. It means I'm old.
Right.
It doesn't mean you're old, clearly.
God, yeah. So in terms... Oh, sorry.
Go on, sorry. With everything, like knowing that obviously there's not a lot of research, how does that affect your day-to-day? Because it's like, I'm on this course or regime, you know, I'm hopeful that this is going to happen, but because there's not that much research out there, and like you just said, sometimes you feel like a lab rat. How does that affect your day-to-day? Like, how does it affect your mental?
I mean, the health anxiety is definitely there. Especially with the like looming thing of like early mortality rates and like dementia and osteoporosis. All of these things are super, super scary, right? So obviously when I like accidentally miss putting a patch on, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to get dementia. Or like, you know, I know if I'm having enough estrogen. Yeah. Like, am I on the best HRT regime? But you've got to kind of go off your symptoms because there's nothing really else you can go off. I mean, you can go off blood tests, but one day you could take a blood test and you have sky high estrogen. The next day you have really, really low estrogen. Right. It like the receptors in your body can change. Placement of where you put your patches. There's so many different factors. So to answer the question, yeah, I have a lot of health anxiety and it really does worry me. But I tailored both of my degrees around early menopause. So I did a bachelor's and a master's. And
Slay.
Thanks.
Hell, nice.
Give her flowers. Thank you.
And I tailored them around like feminist gerontology, so the study of aging and how we see aging people and trying to break down those barriers, being an aging person but not looking old. Or just breaking down the stereotypes of age itself. So that gives me power.
Come on.
Education gives me power and strength. Like knowing the information is out there.
I love that. Yeah.
Come on.
Thanks.
Unreal. Yeah, I was going to ask the same thing about like how it affects your day to day. I guess, how do you find yourself navigating things like relationships, if you don't mind me asking, and, you know, approaching this conversation, especially with men? Amazing that people in your class that would write to you and be like, oh my God, I wish I knew more about this. But I guess approaching that in your 20s, it's such a big thing anyway, but especially in your case, how have you handled that conversation? So
actually with me, it's kind of different and a bit intertwined with lots of different things. So I'm actually a lesbian. So I don't date men.
Okay.
So fertility would be really super hard for me anyway. And like it's an unspoken thing amongst the LGBTQ plus community that infertility is intertwined with all of us. And that's really hard. But the added obvious can't have the eggs is really hard as well. But in my case, having my diagnosis so young really delayed my coming out. So I didn't really want to be like an infertile person and a lesbian. Like that's just a bit too much. That's what I thought. Like at the time I was like, you know, that's just it really threw complex like things with my womanhood. And I was just so scared of people not perceiving me as a woman, even though I really was a woman.
Yeah.
And like felt like a woman. And so like with relationships, I mean, it's hard bringing the infertility thing up in any relationship. Like, when do you say it? Do you say it when you're married? Do you say it on the first date? And then be like, oh, or you can't say it when they're trapped in a marriage. Like, what if they don't want you anymore or whatever? So it is a hard thing, but I think just being really open and honest, like straight off the bat, keeping the communication open. It doesn't have to be like on the first date, really want to let you know that I'm infertile. So like, if you want to leave now, you can.
Right.
It doesn't really need to be like that.
No. Yeah.
It could just be something like, you know, it can come up in any conversation, like, you know, over a pizza, and you just like, yeah, so I basically can't have kids, but you know, it's something that doesn't define me, or like whatever, but more relaxed.
I feel that. And especially what you said about even way back when to schools and just assuming everybody is fertile and going to reproduce and has the ability to. I think the more research that's coming out is that, you know, there is a fertility crisis right now, and I think we should be having these conversations and having that awareness to not assume that everybody is going to be able to do that. And especially for conversations like those with future partners, it's like it's just makes things less daunting.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I wish I had the conversations at school. And that's why I want to go into schools and say, look, like, I was sat where you are, and I was being told about pregnancy and about how it's such a wonderful thing, and it really is a beautiful thing, but it shouldn't be seen as the only option. Like, there is so many options. You can choose not to have children, you can choose to adopt, you can choose to like go down the IVF route, you can, you know, there's so many options, like surrogacy, like that's not even talked about.
Do you know what I think it is as well? I don't know what it is, but when it comes to like education in schools, in a way, when it comes to female, like the reproductive system and like sexual education and stuff, not that it's scaremongering, but then it kind of puts you off as a female to then learn about yourself, because you're like, oh my god, we go through X, Y, this, I don't want to know. So like, if you think about it, already you're programmed to be like, okay, this is going to happen to you, this is what you're expected of a woman, and then you're like, okay, cool, you've told me what I need to do, I don't need to do the research. But actually understanding ourselves is something that we take for granted. And I feel like with girl literacy, the conversation that we've been having and having you here, I'm like, all the times where I know something's not right and I'm just like, yeah, it's whatever, or I just quickly search on a Google search, I actually do myself an injustice, because it's good to go out there, learn about yourself, so you're more prepared than if you do go into like a GP or a doctor's. It's like, I feel like this, I've researched this, I know it could be this, could you just give me that confirmation? You're already a bit comfortable in your situation, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So it's
and advocating for yourself rather than, because not everyone's got an amazing parent that can be there and, like you say, soak up that information for them in a scary situation like a doctor's surgery. And I feel that on a level of like, when I think back to learning about periods, I don't think there was ever any bit of education about endometriosis, but then I've experienced that stuff, gone into a doctor's surgery, they've said no, it's heavy periods, I've gone fine, okay, and then put me on the pill, so I just numb that, and then it's never really taken seriously.
Exactly. I mean, I wish that we didn't have to do that. Like, I wish that we were taken seriously. I wish that we didn't have to find the knowledge ourselves and that it was provided for us. And I really wish that people would pick up on certain signs, draw the dots for us. Like, that's what should happen. But unfortunately, it doesn't. And it is systematic. It's not an individual thing. It's not just the shitty doctors, it's not just the bad GP, it's a system. They're not being taught the right things, or they're not being like expanded over all female health. There's no funding, there's no research to read in the beginning. So where do they go? How can they help us? So we have to kind of help ourselves. But also with authors, We're, you know, individual people. We can do research. We can change the system. So lots of people think that like one vote doesn't count. It massively does. So like we can change things regardless of what everyone thinks. We can. So we're not doomed.
Yeah. No, it's true. When I think about it as well, like even opening up the conversation to men, when we look at these people in power in our parliament, it's a lot of men. So without having the research being done and advocating for women's health and putting that funding in there, like how's it ever going to get better?
Exactly.
So we need to.
I mean, that's why I did a speech at Harrow School, you know, the school for boys. Private school, super, you know, super privileged men and boys in the room. And I did that talk because not only are those men needing to know for their mothers or their sisters or friends or whatever, but they are most likely going to be, when they're older, in those seats.
True. Yeah.
It's true.
They are given the right funding. They are, you know, given the confidence to be in those seats.
Yeah.
Why not educate these people? Like, that's just a system that we live in. So why not educate these people?
Yeah.
And honestly, the reception was brilliant.
Love that.
They were so like interested. They were putting their hands up, asking questions. They wanted to know more. Give people the information. They want the information.
Sheree is feeding the next generation of doctors.
I love that.
That's right.
I think about as well the kind of taboo that comes around the subject of menopause, and I think about like mums, and I don't know if it's the way it's presented in media, but it's like, oh, she's got hot flashes. Oh, she's in a horrible mood. She's this, she's that. Having that compassion is very necessary. And I guess my question to you is, as women that maybe haven't entered this stage of life yet, or don't know where to go to do the research, how do we start?
That's tricky because not everyone has access to certain information, right? Not everyone has a phone, not everyone has a computer. Like, we have to think about the people who aren't privileged enough to go and find that information. So the people in the seats, the people with the voice, the people who are allowed to hold the microphone are the people that can really change things. But as individuals who do have access to certain things, there's, you know, the British Menopause Society.
I didn't even know about that. I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah.
Getting my notes in already.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's like the Make Menopause Matter campaign. There's, you know, menopause support. There's, you know, Google Scholar. Just type in Google Scholar. Yes, there's loads of medical jargon. Yes, there's loads of words that you probably don't understand and probably, you know, you don't want to read. But sift through them, like just skim them. You don't even have to know everything. Just be prepared for your bodies to change and really stay in tune with your bodies now. Like, have some chats with yourself about your body. Are you happy with the way that your health is right now? Like, are there things that you can change with diet or exercise? Or like, you don't have to be this ideal person, but see what helps you. Like, is there certain things that you can change with your gut health? Or there's lots of things that you can research in. It doesn't have to be like menopause specific. And you have this chance to be in a stable body for now. And like, obviously there's twists and turns like every single woman. But once that stability starts to change, that's when you know what's going on. You know, just read the symptoms, like look out for things. I mean, hopefully there'll be more representation out there. There's like different people to talk to. There's like black communities who are talking about menopause in a different way, like, because women are impacted differently, and you just don't know. You don't get told this.
No. Why is that?
I don't know. I think it's because I hear conversations with my mom and her peers like, yeah, maybe it's the menopause, but they get, like, some people get hospitalized. I don't know what it is, but yeah, it is very, very rare.
But it's because there's no research.
Yeah,
it's because what came first was male research. What came second was white research with women, and what came third, unfortunately, was black research. And there's still a long way to go with research and funding and taking people seriously.
Yeah.
Like, people from different backgrounds, they experience the same things. Like, why don't we have the research? It absolutely baffles me. Like, what the hell is going on with this world?
It's a roller coaster. But you know what I've started to appreciate more is like all these period apps. I use an app called Period Diary now, and I'm not gonna lie, when they tell you to tick the symptoms, go through it and tick it. There's even then research on it, how you feeling, stuff that you can do, and it's like the information's there as well. So it's just up to us to kind of like take it in. So I think ever since we started girl literacy and having these kind of like very meaningful conversations, I'm like, okay, cool. What have I taken out of today, and what can I do just to better, you know, feed myself, fill my cup as well, so that I am not blindsided and I know what's going on. So it's just like just getting comfortable in understanding our bodies and doing the work for ourselves.
Absolutely.
And just not waiting, because if we wait and not want to be proactive, trust and believe we'll still be at the back burner. So yeah,
I hope this conversation is just one step in making a more progressive future for women's health.
Come on.
So thank you so much for coming on and speaking with us.
Feeding the nations.
If you guys have any questions for Sheree, write them in the comments, DM us on all our platforms, or email us at ticketfull@junglecreations.com. But that's it for today, and we will see you next week.
Bye.